Hello, today I want to show you one very interesting game between Gersz Rotlewi, not such a famous player, and Akiba Rubinstein, which was one of the best players in the world in the beginning of the 20th century. And maybe some of you have heard about Rubinstein. He is quite famous with his positional play. Probably he was the best positional player at his age, and he has created very original ideas. But in this game, you will see another side of his game, which is the tactical game. Sometimes people think that certain players are good only in one part of the game, like Petrosian was a very good positional player, Tao was a very good attacking player, but in order to be one of the best players in the world, you have to be equally good in all the stages of the game. So now let's move to the game. After d4, Rubinstein was playing with black. He went d5, knight f3, e6, and here of course white has many ideas. c4 is probably the most popular move, as well bishop f4 or bishop g5. He decided to play first e3, which is a more passive move because it's closing down the bishop on c1. But in some occasions there is a plan in which sometimes white is playing b3 and bishop to b2. Now black goes c5. And suddenly white has decided to play c4, switching the game. After knight c6, knight c3, knight f6 into some deviation of the Tarrasch defense. But for those of you who are familiar with the Tarrasch defense, usually after pawn takes, white has the same position, but his bishop is, instead of c1, is on g5, which is of course much more active, pinning the knight and attacking the d-pawn. When the bishop is on c1, this is a very good position for black, because even if he can get isolated pawn on d5, he can easily protect it, and his pieces are more active. So white had another plan. He decided to take on c5, but I'm not sure that this was the best move, because usually you take on c5 or on c4 only when your opponent has moved his bishop. For example, white can make some useful move, and then after bishop e7, he can take on c5, because after bishop c5, it means that black will lose one move. Bishop e7, bishop c5. Now in the game white took immediately, and black can develop his bishop in one go, bishop c5. But of course now white plays a3, and he thinks that because obviously he will play soon b4, again black has to waste some time with his bishop. Now if black goes a5, this will give the square b5 for the white maybe knight or bishop. That's why this is not the best possible move. Black decided to play a6, which is also a bit mysterious move. Maybe you're wondering what is the idea of this move. The idea is a bit more deep, and I will explain it to you a bit later. Now after b4, black can go both bishop to a7, which is one of the ideas of a6, or bishop d6. Rubinstein has played the move bishop to d6. And now, if white takes on d5, of course, this is a very popular trap. White cannot take the pawn, because now after queen takes, black will take bishop takes b4, check. White has to do something. Let's say he takes, and now he is losing his queen. But of course, white can play something else. Like in the game, he has played bishop b2. But the point is that after the pawn is on a6, there is no knight b5. Otherwise, even after pawn takes, in many occasions white has this idea to go knight to b5 to attack the bishop, and if you move the bishop back to b8, he can go the knight from b5 to d4. And this is one of the most common ideas how to fight against the isolated pawn, by moving this knight from c3 to d4. So basically the move a6 is against this idea knight b5. In the game, white goes bishop to b2. Now black castles. Once again, white cannot win the pawn because of the same combination in the end, bishop takes b4. And here probably he has to play something like pawn takes and then bishop e2, castle. He decided to move his queen to d2, which is not the best square for the queen in those type of positions, because now often after knight e4, black is attacking with the tempo of the queen. Now probably white is waiting for the same thing, but that he is expecting black to take on c4, and he doesn't want to move his bishop. He wants to take it in one go, just like black did on c5. So he thought that this is a useful move, and now maybe at some moment black will be forced to take on c4. Black can take on c4, of course, but he went queen e7, which is offering the pawn. This time white can try to win the pawn, but again the problem is that after this line now queen takes, black can sacrifice something on b4. Of course he can play bishop e6, but only to mention that bishop b4 is not working, because after queen takes there is queen d2 and white is protecting everything. But black can take maybe with his knight, although this is very complicated, and then to take with his bishop, because now there is no knight d2, because of knight d2 there is rook d8, so white has to move the king, and then this is very unclear. Now maybe bishop d7 is coming with the idea bishop b5 check, and the rooks are going out. Of course black is not obliged to sacrifice a piece. This is only one of the possible lines. He could simply play bishop to e6 maybe here, and he has a good compensation. Anyway, Rubinstein knew that he has to play active, because he has a good development and the white king is in the center. So white decided not to take this pawn, and he played bishop to d3. And now black took, winning a tempo, and he had the same idea like white has played, b5. And this is a very symmetrical position, but we can see that there is a difference. Black has already castled, which is one tempo more. His queen is on the e file, not on the d file. And now after rook to d8, we can see that maybe it was not such a good idea to put the queen on d2, and she has to move somewhere. That's why, because maybe white was afraid of some kind of ideas like bishop takes before, knight takes before, or maybe knight e5. He moved his queen away. But after bishop b7, you see that black is already 3 tempos ahead. The castle, the rook is on the d file, and now white, okay, has to castle. This is the only move. So it looks like the game is close to equal. Everything is almost the same. But black has to take the initiative. And if he plays some slow move like rook c8, white can try to take the initiative with the move maybe knight e4. And it seems like in this case, after knight takes, bishop takes e4, white will activate his bishop. So this is one possible line. Of course, here there are some complications who are possible, but in general this will be good for white to exchange the knights and to open these 2 diagonals for his bishops. Now black has to do the same. He has to play knight e5, because now he is attacking the knight and the bishop. And now I think white has to take, otherwise either knight d3 is coming, queen takes, bishop h2 check, either knight f3 and the white king is exposed. So he has to take, and now black has active bishop on the diagonal, active rook on the file. The other diagonal is also very important. And still the white position is not so bad, but he has to play more cautious. Probably rook d1 and rook c1 was the best possible line for white. But he was tempted to win some space. Maybe he thought that the move knight e5 was not such a good move, because now after f4 he is attacking the bishop with a tempo, and now the bishop went back to c7 and white is playing e4. So this is very interesting moment in the game, where most of the people would think that white has made very good moves with these pawns, because now suddenly he has a very nice center. he wants to push e5 or maybe f5, and he wants to attack against the king. But it turns out that now black has a very good position. Here black went rook c8, although he could have tried a very interesting move here. Knight h5 was possible, but okay, it was a bit more difficult. Rook c8 seems like a normal move, and he was hoping that white will push e5, which actually happened in the game. This is a normal follow-up. When you play f4 and e4, of course you want to push the pawns, and if white doesn't see any danger for his pieces, he pushes e5, and he thinks that now probably black will play knight d5, and then he can either take, or he can maybe go knight e4 and then knight c5, or maybe knight g5, and everything looks very nice for white. But he has missed something, that after this check and king h1, suddenly now black can move the knight not only to d5 but to g4. What is the idea of this move? The idea is that after queen takes or rook takes, now black wants to take on c3, and if white tries to protect it somehow with the rook, now rook d2 is coming, attacking the bishop and attacking the g2. What to do? Bishop h7 is not changing a lot of things, because black can simply take and go rook d2 again. And then, okay, white decided to close this big diagonal, which is very dangerous, and black has plenty of ideas like queen h4, and to meet h3 with queen h3, for example, if white plays some move like, let's say, rook c1, after queen h4, you cannot play h3 because of queen h3 and then checkmate. That's why it seems like a good idea to exchange the bishops. So if if black takes here, white will take with the knight, and now he's protecting f2. He can meet queen h4 maybe with g3, and everything looks more or less fine. But Rubinstein has played first queen h4, and now the idea is that, okay, of course white can play either h3, either g3. If he plays h3, black has plenty of possibilities. He can as well take on e4, but the best move is rook takes c3, because now, of course, black has to calculate all those queen takes, bishop takes, bishop takes, but actually only bishop takes c3 makes some sense. And now after bishop takes, the thing is that if you take on e4, surprisingly here, black is not playing knight f2 because white will take, but he has queen to g3, and there is no defense from queen h2 checkmate, and if you take, the queen goes back, so this will be a checkmate. That's why white went g3, and he thought that this is a very good move. Now he's attacking the queen, he's attacking as well the bishop, the knight needs some protection, so maybe white thought that everything is under control. But he has missed a great combination, which I guess Rubinstein must have seen this idea few moves before he went queen h4, otherwise, if you don't see it, then you're in trouble. And this is the move rook takes c3. This is only the beginning of an amazing combination. Now, if white takes on c3, of course, bishop takes e4 and then queen h2 checkmate. So he has no choice, he has to take the queen. And now again, it's not so obvious what exactly is going on. Now, e4 is protected, knight f2, white simply takes, but the idea now of Rubinstein is that he is playing the rook to d2. And this is incredible move, after which white is losing by force. Now, he has to take the rook, there is nothing else. Bishop takes e4 check. The only move is queen g2. And probably here white was hoping maybe that Black will take on g2, and then this position is playable. Now rook c2, king g3, and the game is very unclear. But unfortunately for him, this was not the end. And now after rook to h3, surprisingly, even if the queen is over there, the rook is over there, but nobody can defend against rook h2 checkmate. White can only delay the mate with some sacrifices. Bishop d4, maybe rook f3, but black takes everything on the diagonals. And then the thing is that rook h2 is a threat, and queen to e4. Once again, rook h2 is a checkmate. So this was very, very interesting, and probably the best game of Akiba Rubinstein in terms of attacking play, in which we saw some incredible sacrifices in combination. I hope that you have enjoyed this game, and see you next time.